Hi, I'm Bobby DeMars. I am the founder and CEO of Blind Barrels, and I'm going to talk to you about how we've successfully scaled our small business. So, anytime you're starting a direct consumer brand, the first thing is to identify where is this consumer gap, where is this need. There are needs that are being fulfilled and are oversaturated. The way that we found a need was I discovered blind tastings from my buddy during COVID, and I loved it. I had never done it with whiskey. I'd only done it with wine, and I wanted to go have more of that experience. And I went out tried to find it, and I couldn't. And in my heart of hearts, I felt like I can't be the only one that now that I've experienced this wants to experience this even more. So the first thing was identifying that gap, and then figuring out why does that gap exist. In our case, yes, the three-tier system, alcohol space is heavily restricted. We can't just pour whiskey into a bottle and send it out to places. You need to have all sorts of partnerships. And ultimately, we created this. It wasn't so much, hey, we wanted to create a double blind. We wanted to give people access to small American craft distillers. So in creating our direct-to-consumer brand, the one thing that we wanted to create wasn't just something that was high-end, but at the end of the day, we are creating an experience for our members. So there's a QR code that takes them to a reveal page that tells them everything about the brand, the age, the proof, the type of whiskey, the aromas, the tasting notes, the finish. And then it gives them the ability to buy that bottle for the same price as if they were at the distillery. And ultimately, that's really what lowered our churn rate. People getting access to these brands. There's FOMO. We've added a game component that is even more another engagement tool. So people can guess the age, the proof, and the whiskey type, and they'll get a score that tells them how accurate their palate is. We always say great whiskey is meant to be shared. We got so many emails about how fun the game was and how they couldn't wait to share it with people. So at the end of the day, creating that engagement creates loyalty and creates a shareable component. So one of the things for direct to consumer that's difficult is actually scaling your brand. You have to do planning to figure out what are the fixed costs that you need, not just for your product, but you're going to have overhead, you're going to have internet, you're going to have employees, and then ultimately, what is the growth rate? What is a targeted growth rate that is not only going to pay for that, but give you enough profit to continue to reinvest in the company and to grow even more? You got to pay for packaging and bottles and caps and all these other things. And we run into distilleries all the time where they've been around for 10 years and they only have 80 barrels because they never scaled properly. And that's probably because they never started properly. They didn't raise the amount of money that they needed to actually build in a marketing plan. Ultimately, you have a certain amount of success and you need to reinvest in the company. So we figured out what that threshold was and trying to figure out what is it that's going to get us to our initial goals and what's going to get us to our long-term goals. So step 4 when you're launching and starting your direct consumer is you have to have a plan for setting growth targets. So our initial plan was to grow 15% each quarter. For us, that was sustainable. That covers our overhead, and that gives us money to play with to expand into other marketing opportunities. But there's also a maximum growth rate that we set, which was 30%. Every time I would talk to somebody that's like, well, we don't want to grow too fast. And they're like, but isn't that a nice problem to have? It can become a pretty big problem because you know what? If you are growing at that rate and you haven't spent the money on the supply chain, because all that takes time, just like whiskey in a barrel takes time, supply chains take time, and throwing more money at it by taking on debt doesn't necessarily solve that problem. So step 5, once you've established your brand and you're in the marketplace, at the end of the day, you got to cultivate loyalty and community. I'd love to say that it's our high-end packaging and our curated lineup, but the secret sauce in our company is FOMO. People don't want to miss out on what the next lineup is. So if you're a brand that has one SKU and you're out there and you're not reinventing anything, you're not doing anything traditional, you're going to stagnate and you're not going to grow. So we've built a community of whiskey lovers. So we do live tastings with our members. I'm super accessible. If somebody contacts the customer service line, they get me. And not only does it put out fires faster, but it makes our members that much more loyal. The brands that I've seen that we fall in love with, Penelope's done this, Corbin Cash has done this. They make themselves accessible to their members and their consumers and really their fans. And that makes sustainability for your brand. But at the end of the day, you got to create engagement. You have to create loyalty. And, a big part of our success and maybe the cornerstone for our success is we built a community. You can find me on really all our handles are at Blind Barrels, whether it's YouTube or Instagram. And if you guys have questions, if you're a startup and you need help, I do love the entrepreneur community as well. And just like I'm accessible to our members, I'm happy to make myself accessible to you.